Thank you, CR. Good afternoon, everybody. So as CR said, I've been around, done a lot of things. I'm over 40 years in education. I worked as a classroom teacher, coach, worked as an administrator, building level, district level, and finished as a superintendent. Been here for about 4.5 years. But my goal today is to help you to kind of navigate the process of school improvement. Strategic planning, being a part of that process, of course, a big part of it. So we're going to look at a review of the strategic planning, just a definition and an overview of the process. I'll present some fundamental school improvement strategies. School improvement's difficult. If it wasn't difficult, right, we'd all have great test scores all the time. We're going to share some common challenges that we see and talk about them. As CR said, we're open for any kind of dialogue here today. Obviously I could spend a whole day talking about some of the things we're going to do. So if there's something on your mind that you wanted to hear about or have a question at any time, please interject. Leader's role in strategic planning. I'm going to emphasize that later in the process. I'm going to talk about culture. Leaders are hugely important in driving school improvement. Without really good leadership, it probably won't happen. It certainly won't happen well. And then we're going to talk about the power of collaboration and how important that is. So here at SCDE, we have a school improvement model. So strategic planning fits within that. And there are steps. It's a strategy, and I guess I want to make sure, let's start by doing that by saying that school improvement is not about compliance. So I'm assuming you wouldn't be here if that's the case. We do have districts and buildings that you can tell when you read their plans, they've done it for compliance sake. We want this plan to be something that's going to change and impact kids, impact students, right? And it's a cycle. So it's ongoing, it's revised, things overlap. It's important. What I want you to do for just 2 minutes is think about your building or district, whichever one you want, and what would you want to see for your kids? Whether your own personal kids are there or not, maybe they were, or if they were there. What would you want to see for the kids in your building? Just take a minute or two. What are some of the kinds of things that aren't happening that you'd love to see happen in your building? I want you to reflect. And if you're ready, please share it with your neighbor. Just 1 or 2 things that you know you could do better, that you would love to see be something that would happen for your staff, but most importantly for your kids. Go ahead and share it with your neighbor if you would, please. All right, I'm going to go ahead and bring us back together. Sounds like we had some good conversations. And really what I wanted you to do is just start to be thinking about, obviously, school improvement. What is something that you need to do? So one of our conversations I just had was about teacher retention and the impact it can make, because we do know turnover can be significant, and there are lots of opportunities and resources for that. And so, yeah, that's good. Anybody else want to share their thought or their neighbor's thought, something that you had a conversation?
We talked about the opportunity for students to have productive struggle. And that sometimes that's a cultural thing throughout the building or even the district, that we do a lot for teachers. And in turn, they do a lot of the work for their students. So to really change those mindsets on, it's okay to have a few minutes where we're working through this problem. Maybe we don't find a solution, but that we're learning to hone our problem solving skills.
Very good. Thank you. One more. Anybody else? All right, it's gonna be quiet today. All right. So the idea is that everybody has challenges, right? There's no way you sat there and went, I really couldn't think of anything that we could do better or that would need improvement or would help impact student outcomes. And so there's a process to that, and this is the model, and you see it. So it's diagnosing it, selecting interventions, making the plan, implementing that plan, monitoring and evaluating, and then revising it. And so that's the cycle we'll talk about a little bit. So strategic plan is part of that process. And it's a dynamic process, right? It changes, it fluctuates, and we have 5-year cycles that we go through. You're going to do an initial plan, right? And you'll do 4 updates. There'll be revisions, sometimes even to your updates or initial plan. So there's lots of opportunities to go back in and make changes. What's important are those actions that you'll come up with as a part of that process. And so, again, improving student outcomes is a challenge. So you're going to need strategies and structure for that. So here are some of the things that we think are some of the most important. First is the needs assessment. This morning, there was a couple of you that are here. I don't know if you were maybe somebody in the other one, but anyway, I like to use the analogy of going to a physician. And if you went to a physician and he or she wasn't very diagnostic towards your opportunity to understand your challenges, right? So all he did was take your temperature, maybe take your blood pressure, and then was going to give you advice as to how you could move forward for your what may be significant health challenges. Has he or she done enough? No. So a needs assessment is where it starts. Your ability to have school improvement will not go far if you don't fully diagnose and deeply diagnose your challenges. Because the intervention, which is the next step, has to be aligned and differentiated. You're going to have challenges at a district level. You'll have challenges that may be different at building levels. You'll have challenges that may be different than that at teacher levels. And you'll have challenges at student levels, right? So it is deep. It is deep, but the interventions are very important. And we're going to talk about some resources that we have for that. And then focused improvement. We'll talk more about that as well. But one of the things I want to make sure that you leave with is the idea that usually less is more. So we read plans in some cases that may have 8 or 10 student goals. We've seen that many. And within that, there could be multiple strategies to help achieve that student goal. Within those strategies, there may be 6, 8, even 10 action steps. Well, in my philosophy, you should be monitoring all of that. I don't know how you can monitor 8 goals, 2 or 3 strategies, 10 action steps. That's hundreds of action steps. And so you're going to drown in all that minutia. So one of the things that we want to make sure that you hear from us is that you really want to be strategic about what you're focusing on. And so making sure that even if you do have multiple goals, that there's at least 1 or 2 that really are getting a lot of your attention, so that you don't end up with a little bit of attention on a lot of things. I'm going to break strategic planning into 2 specific areas, if you will. One is the structure of the strategy. So that cycle that we just talked about, that's that structure. It's having your stakeholders come together, It's having meetings to talk about and develop your needs assessment. It's understanding diagnostically where you are being challenged. It's researching and finding those implementing those research-based interventions, those changes. It's monitoring, right? It's all those things. That's that structure and strategy that you have. So you've got to have direction and focus from it. Some people use it or call it a roadmap. If you get ready to go on a trip, right? You may have a destination. So we want our students to improve. What's the roadmap to get there? That's what a strategic plan is. It's a really detailed roadmap. And then you've got to have the efficiency to execute that strategy. So you've got to have that structure so that you've got the experts who are helping you understand those interventions. Who's going to decide what interventions we're going to use? Are we going to get a new math curriculum because our math scores are low? Well, maybe we got one 3 years ago. You know, what's the right way to go? And so that's just part, and we'll get deeper on all of that. That's part of that structure and strategy. But the other part of it is the culture. I think this is probably the most important slide of the presentation. So in my 43 years of experience in education, I've been blessed to be I worked mostly in 2 districts that really had some great improvements and some outstanding test scores, as well as many other things. We weren't just focused on test scores. But the reason that happened is because we had worked really hard in this area. If you don't have the culture, collaboration is huge. We worked as a professional learning community. How many of you are either familiar with that term or use? Okay, good. If it's done well, professional learning communities are amazing. They're absolutely amazing. That collaboration and then the distributed leadership. I can tell you a couple stories. Collaboration. We worked really, really hard to be common in our curricular approach because that way we knew we had a viable curriculum at all levels. And after several years of doing that, and then doing correlations to our common summative assessments, which they were common summatively and formatively, all grade levels, all subject areas. We found out that our test scores in those areas correlated to the state test scores. So we could be assured that if, not one-to-one perfect, but if our kids did well on our common summative assessments, they were going to do well on state tests. We knew that we had a viable, rigorous curriculum at every grade level, every content level, from being collaborative that way. And then distributive leadership, having people step up and take roles where they feel comfortable. One easy example is we had an elementary building, and the guidance counselor kind of had noticed that there was kids who were struggling in the morning. And as she kind of put together a process to help these kids, she realized, guess what? They're all from the same bus. The driver was a screamer, and the kids were coming to school a mess. And so we had a PBIS program that we had initiated, and guess who we had never trained? Our bus drivers. So guess what she did? With the permission of her building principal and through superintendent's office, we're going to put together some training for our bus drivers. She did that. This bus driver was amazingly better with some training. The kids, of course, had a much better experience. We helped 40, 50 kids have a better morning every day by doing something that I would have never thought of. And the building principal even said to me, she said, I would never thought that this could be a fun. I don't know, because there was kids all over the building. How do you connect those pieces? Somebody did it and felt empowered enough and had the leadership to do something about it. So I love that proverb that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Professional learning communities, collaboration. Again, I can't stress it enough how much of a difference that can make for your kids. Second part of it is that accountability and having high expectations. One of the things that I told the group this morning, and as I'll say again, we really focused on what impacts does this have on children. And the more you do that, and the more you say that, and the more it sinks in, I think the more people start to trust you. And people will follow you only as deeply as they trust you. Because I'm going to tell you, school change, improvement in school outcomes is hard. Again, we'd all just do this and it'd be done, right? There are districts that have been in this state and others that have been struggling with their reading scores for 30 years. Not 2, not 5, for years and years and years. It's hard. It is hard. But this is important. You've got to establish high expectations, and then you've got to be able to have those relationships and that opportunity that people are truly focusing on kids. And so I love that last quote as well. And you don't expect changes in student outcomes before you have changes in adult practices. If the teachers in the classroom aren't doing things more effectively, are the kids going to learn? Not going to happen. So I read a book about 5 years ago. Anybody read this book? It's really good. I enjoyed it. It's a school in Washington, a district in Washington. And here's what I liked about it. There, the pedagogy and the strategies that you'll see, they decided their reading scores were too low. Fairly high poverty district. It wasn't that they were underachieving. They were achieving at probably a normal rate based upon the demographics of the district. But they decided that having just over 50% of their students be proficient in reading was unacceptable. They're not going to do it anymore. You're not going to accept it. So they made a plan. They do a strategic plan. When you read the book, if you do, the plan's good. I wouldn't say it's the catch-all everything. In fact, it's old enough now, it doesn't even follow the science of reading. It's a little bit dated. Doesn't matter about the plan. Here's what happened. They had that culture. Superintendent, the building principals, all the folks in the leadership positions made a determination that 50+% is not acceptable. And they didn't change curriculums. They didn't give up on processes. They just kept at it. Now, their improvements were not linear. It didn't go like this. It went up and it went sideways, maybe down and up. But over the course of 10 years, they really made some tremendous gains. And then they just wrote about their journey. So I would encourage you to take a look at it. Here's what I took from it. Again, pedagogy was solid, nothing wrong with it, but it was the culture. Because you're not going to make these kinds of gains just by having changes in your pedagogy or changes in your professional learning or having a better strategic planning structure. You will only make these kinds of gains if you change the culture. So what's it look like? What's another essential element? Well, having an action plan, right? Having all those things that we've talked about. One of the words in there that is important to me is data-driven. So unfortunately, sometimes we see plans, and sometimes the plans aren't all the things that you do, but we see a fair amount of plans that even within student achievement, the only performance goals are based upon school report card data. And if you're only looking at school report card data to determine how the kids are doing, you're just waiting way, way, way too long, right? You've got to be looking at diagnostics or assessments during the year. It's just really, really important that data drives that process often enough that I don't want you testing kids to death, but when you do have assessments, are they meaningful? Are they strategic? Does it give you meaningful information? How many of you do some level of vendor-produced benchmarking? Right? Most of you. How many of you have run a correlation to that vendor-produced benchmarking and the student's result on the state test? All right, good. Most of you. That's excellent. How many of you have found that it informs you in a way that's truly meaningful? Some of you? Excellent. Okay. My experience was not that. My experience was that the vendor-produced assessments were always a little less rigorous. And so if we would see, as an example, 65% of our fourth graders on grade level reading, we might see 45 or 50%. There was this gap. And that's why I had talked about what we did. We went ahead and did our own. And it took us years and it was a lot of work. But anyway, if you're having good results, that's awesome. And so then you should be using that throughout the year, your benchmarks, to understand if kids are on track or not and using that information. So this gets back to that structure. This is one more chance for me to emphasize, though, transformations don't take place unless the culture permits it. All right, so this is a slide I threw in. You're probably familiar. This link, and you'll have access to this PowerPoint, is a link to our webpage that has all kinds of resources. So if you're looking for some resources, Innovation Station, all that, the better talk about Innovation Station a little bit towards the end, is a website that we've used. We've vetted all kinds of different information, so it's available to you. So take a look at that when you get a chance. There's really a lot of good resources. But as you guys know, you're required to have a plan. There are 5-year cycles, right? Anybody getting ready to finish their initial? Are you? Okay, those are tough.
Finish your initial.
Yeah, are you on your initial cycle? So you're on your initial plan within your 5-year cycle. Anybody there? No. Okay, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
So you've probably done some work, I hope, already, and you're kind of, okay, wrapping some things up. That's the tough year. That's the deepest year. But those other years should still be, there should be a ton of work that goes on in those other years. A little less of the stakeholder involvement, some of those things, but there's all kinds of things to do with those annual updates. Submission April 30th, CR talked about that. I am going to share, though, that we really want you to have great plans. If you're working really, really hard, have a conversation with your ed associate, RCR, whoever, that you might not make that date. But I'd rather have you do the plan well and miss that date by a little bit. I'm not, we're going to start reading them in early May, but we won't get to some of them until end of June, early July. We won't even get to them. So I'm personally not that concerned. If you're working hard and you just aren't there yet, getting that thing done as timely as possible.
And if you know it's going to be late, maybe you got a new superintendent and y'all gotta refresh things, whatever the situation may be, it's gonna be after April 30th. There's a waiver for that. Go into our state accountability webpage, there's waivers, and put in that it's going to be late, delaying the submission. And then all you have to do in that is tell me how long it's going to be. Maybe it's July 1 and maybe it's August 1, just depending on what's going on, but you can delay that submission, that waiver by that time.
Thank you. So the last bullet point, how many of you are familiar? Some of you have heard about the one plan that we're working to develop a resource to do that. Still working, unfortunately. But I guess I'll share with you is it's still best practices. Even though we don't have the tool or the resource to help you with it, please be inclusive of all the plans, the title plans. Don't let special ed be working out on their own. Different, all those things you have to do if you can try to make sure those folks are all at the table. So all those resources are available for as many kids as possible. So again, these are the parts of the plan. This is a more veteran group, I understand. So you guys, I'm sure, are familiar with these. Same thing here. See, these are just some of the compliance aspects of this process. I didn't want to totally skip that, though. There has to be a goal of student achievement, water, teacher, ethnic quality, school climate, district level gifted and talented. Then you can see on the right for schools. Technically, one goal in each area is compliant. Most often, you'll probably have more than one. I just would ask you to be careful not to have too many. Or for sure then have some that are really a primary focus and others that are something you're going to be working towards. So that's just, again, that's just some compliance information. So we're going to go and use the school model, improvement model, and we're going to work around the model and talk a little bit about how it pertains to the SSR. So diagnosing, I can't overemphasize that. It says consult many sources, making sure that when you bring on your initiative, your stakeholder groups together, we want lots of voices and lots of lenses, people who are seeing things from a different lens. I want you to plan and prepare for the process. We'll talk about that in a minute. Collect and analyze data, making sure that you have really good data. Another story that so I was a high school principal and I finished my first year and looked at the students who had received their math instruction in the resource room, but took the state test. They weren't on an alternate assessment. That particular year, we had 4 or 5 and OFER on the test. Not one of them met the benchmark. But that's a shame. Let me go back. I went back 4 years. We were 0 for 19, if you count the 3 years before, and then my first year there. So, okay, that's broken, right? I mean, these students have special needs, but they can pass the test. Many of them. These are students that were taking it the regular assessment. Most of them, had specific learning disabilities. So went back, looked a little bit closer at my notes and some of my observations, walkthroughs, had some conversations, and realized that the highest level of subject that we taught was about 7th grade math by standards. They were taking a 9th and 10th grade test. But we were really doing the right thing for the kids because we were making them feel good. We were meeting where they were at, right? Wrong. So what do? We said the first thing we're going to do is we're going to teach the kids a standard. We're going to work really hard to close the gaps. We're going to try to fill in with some interventions. They got extra time, extra support. Over the next several years, we went back and looked at the data. 81% of the kids passed the test that were in resource room math. Actually, I lied because we got rid of resource room math. We moved the resource room teacher into a general ed classroom. So we integrated them in gen ed because that's the other problem. In our particular situation, the resource room math teacher was a special education teacher who was not that strong at math. She felt uncomfortable getting much past 6th and 7th grade standards. And so we moved the kids in. So that's an easy example or story of using data to develop and understand a problem. And then to say, okay, what's the root cause? The root cause is they weren't being taught at the grade level. How do we fix that? Our plan was to integrate them into a classroom because that teacher wasn't going to do it by herself. And it worked. About 95% of our kids were passing that test. So they were still below their peers, but not much at all. The vast majority of those students who are now learning math were learning it at a rate like their peers. Prioritizing strategic and overarching challenges, making sure that so how many of you are content with your reading scores? Right? Nobody, I don't think. Right? So is that going to be a primary focus? Absolutely. I can't think of the building of the district. We're not going to focus on making sure kids can read. And so what are the things that are going to happen to do that? Conducting a root cause analysis, again, being as diagnostic as you can. So this is about diagnose. It's getting that data out, it's understanding it at a deep level, seeing and discovering problems and making sure that you're going to be starting to work towards fixing them. So that needs assessment, I think, requires an inclusive team approach. Again, lots of voices, lots of lenses. It requires gathering and analyzing data. We're going to show you a couple methods for doing that. Do you have someone in your district that's good at helping data become manageable and understandable? Make sure that person is there for these kinds of meetings because you'll have stakeholders who won't get it. And sometimes there are teachers who don't fully understand it. Gives them that opportunity. And then that needs assessment informs those root causes and how do you get specific need statements and problem statements done so that you can focus on getting it done. So
Can we back up just a second?
yeah.
Also on that comprehensive needs assessment, just putting your report card link on there and calling it done is not gonna get past us. So if you're one of those, or you've got a building principal that does that, you might as well tell them it's going to get kicked back. We've already agreed on that, and I've seen it in several places. So make sure that they are spending time thinking through this process.
Thank you, because that's not always been the case, unfortunately, because I've done some reviews from 3 or 4 years ago after the initial was done, and that was their needs assessment, the link to their report card.
And even so, with that being said, just copying the information from the report card and putting it in there is the same thing. So we need to see more data than just that report card data.
So there's several.
So can I ask a question about
Yeah,
this? Because I
please.
inherited a plan that was like that, and I almost died when I saw it.
Right.
So when I submitted this year, I didn't put that in there, and then I had to kick back and told I had to put the link in, and I was like, so
Well-
I'm just thinking, I'm in year 5, right? I'm just gonna submit the data that I've submitted last year, and I'll submit it again this year, but we're rewriting a whole new plan next year, correct?
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, so can I focus on writing the new plan that meets this? Because like literally that's all it was screenshots of the report card.
Yeah, we do like to have the link as part of that overall process. So, but if you do a good needs assessment and don't have the link, I would say most people I'm not going to create that as a problem.
There's spot gems where you can put it.
Yeah. See,
You're using gems, but it's
I'm-
using the member center on the spot. But where we have the hiccup, and where I've seen it, and you have too, Pat, is it's just a link in the discussion, no thought.
Are you a GEMS district for your submission? No, you don't go through GEMS, you go through the portal. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because in GEMS, there's actually a button to grade. Do you have the link? So in GEMS, it's a little bit, you almost have to have it because you have to click that button to say, yeah, you had it. But anyway, bottom line is that needs assessment, it's for you, it's for your staff and for your kids, and it should be thorough. It should not be a review or a cut and paste of your report card data. Yep. So there's several ways you can get to the essence of your challenges in your district. We're going to share two today. First one's a SWOT analysis. Anybody do a SWOT analysis as they're driving? Okay, some of you. SWOT analysis is taking with the stakeholders and trying to determine with consensus, what are your strengths? And then what are your weaknesses? What are your opportunities? And what are your threats? Okay. And that will, through that discussion, help you to understand more deeply what folks are concerned about, what their experiences are, what's your current reality. And it's a process, which, by the way, the Innovation and Support Team, what we do is we go into districts and provide support in lots of ways. One of them is strategic planning or school improvement. So if you ever want anyone to come, I did this for about 15 or 18 years. We used the SWOT process. And help you or lead you through doing this, we will come and do that for free. We come out and we'll provide support. That's one way to do it, is a SWOT analysis. And so you're going to look at your weaknesses and you're going to decide what are your priorities there. And then you're going to start to dig deeper and see what are the root causes. You're going to find matching data to it. It's just a process to understand where you're at, what your challenges are, and where you can go from there. All right. So another way is reflective questions. There are lots of resources with reflective questions. I can lead you to them. But just to walk you through what that looks like. So we've got a group of stakeholders, right? So we're going to ask ourselves, you can substitute building for district. It engages and supports all schools, classrooms, and systematic processes for curriculum design to align instruction and assessments with the required standards. This is just a sample of what could, most resources that have this kind of thing will have about 4 to 6 areas and 10 to 20 questions in each area. And so this is curriculum, obviously. And so if you had conversations about that and you said, well, in one building, the rigor of the math instruction is just not there. The principal hasn't led it, or they didn't get a chance to the PD, or they don't, right? Or in one classroom or in a couple classrooms. Or it could just be that, you know what, our instruction and assessments, my story at the high school that I was at, right? Special ed story. It was not aligned to the required standards for that grade level. Wasn't aligned. I've also had parts of grade levels in regular ed that were like that as an administrator. And so I would answer that question with, that could be a challenge, right? And it's something we need to talk about. You could put rating scales on it. The bottom line is these questions are just overarching, these statements are overarching ideas of what's important in education. These are just some curriculum examples. Guides, supports, and evaluates the implementation of curriculum instruction and assessment. So do you have a viable, rigorous curriculum in every classroom? Are the assessments aligned to the standards and rigorous enough so that if the students do well, you know they're on track? If you can't answer that in the affirmative, then you need to obviously star that and come back to it and have deeper dialogue about how are we going to provide that for the kids, right? Because Marzano, Hattie, many of the prominent educational researchers would say, if you don't have that, you don't have a chance. The kids are not going to learn on grade level. And so you can read more of them. Again, there would then be multiple areas, whether it would be leadership. And if you want a resource that, again, I can give you some. West Ed has a great one. Arizona's Department of Education, Michigan Department of Education. We have not developed one yet in South Carolina, but these other ones are very, very good. And we've relied on them. And because they're extremely similar. They ask a lot of the same questions. So you can see where a reflective question, I like this combined with a SWOT. Because it helps you to start to narrow your focus on what is it that we really want to see. And so here's a slide that would say, what are those things we want to see? Well, we want to see an aligned curriculum. We want to see aligned assessments at a rigorous level. And then there are reflective questions for that. We want to see effective instruction. We want to make sure pedagogically, I remember when I first became a curriculum director and I went into some classrooms and we were doing guided reading with a workshop model, and you would see it in one classroom and it looked similar in structure. And you go in another classroom and you'd say, oh, no, that's it. I see it. You know, and this one was just not there yet. And you go to another one and it wasn't even the structure yet. You know, right? You see all those. And so I've got to figure out how do I support those teachers who don't have those nuances and all those parts and pieces of effective instruction. Quality of leadership, supports for students and teachers. Since COVID, there was just some data just released this week. Our nation is behind in math even further than it was before, right? Mm-hmm. Our gaps are bigger. Math builds on each other. And some kids lost 2 years of math. To close that gap's going to be serious. So what supports do we have? Do we have, aggressive tutoring? Do we have additional time and support with productive interventions? Are we having kids go to summer school? How are we closing those gaps is the question. Do we have supports for students who need intervention? Because if we don't, then next year when their SC ready scores or their high school, their end of course scores come out, we shouldn't be surprised when it says that they're not there yet. Safe, positive climate, and you guys see the areas, right? And so there are reflective questions for those areas that will help drive that dialogue that can actually even be manipulated through a SWOT structure. And so that's what we're offering as an opportunity to take the deep dive into how are we doing? What does our needs assessment look like? So when you do a needs assessment, really what you're trying to do is develop problem statements. The idea that here's the challenge. Let's define it as diagnostically and specifically as we can. That problem statement will then be compared so that we can understand what the root cause is, because that's hugely important. Because what does the root cause do? It drives what interventions, strategies we're going to use to overcome it, which is then going to be measured against performance objectives and ultimately against the performance goal, right? So that's that ongoing process of using a comprehensive needs assessment in a continuous improvement process is that feeding itself. So I just thought that diagram kind of helped say it. So let's talk about problem statements. A problem statement, as you see on the slide, is a fact backed up by data. So it defines the problem that arises out of the data. It describes that condition that prevents the goal from being achieved. And so it answers those questions that you see below. I think this is an important slide too. This helps you have the structure then for your data deep dive to quantify it, if you will, okay, in a way that you can really start to attack. If you answer these questions, you're going to have really specific ideas of how you can overcome it. So for my example, students who were being taught math in the resource room, right? Who's it impact? Students with special needs. What program? It was math at the high school level. Where's it occurring? In the resource room. When's it occurring? Every year. Every year we went over, right? That's a problem. There's a problem statement. And so we then had to make up a plan to overcome that. So here's a check. If you have a quality problem statement, you can answer yes to any one of these. Does it focus on one issue? You want to be specific. A SMART goal that you're going to write, right? What's the S in SMART goal? Specific or strategic? Yep. Got to be specific. Does it focus on an issue? Is it verified by facts? Do you have the data? So remember we talked about those questions, or actually they're really statements. Okay, we don't have a viable curriculum in third grade reading. We've done it, okay. Do you have data that supports that? Does it provide context? So I don't have to read through all of those. You guys get the idea. But now you're getting to see how specific the problem statement's getting, which will help you to be more focused on defining the intervention to overcome the challenge. Writing good problem statements is a very big part of finishing your needs assessment and evolving over into your plan. In order to truly bring this to a depth that is something that you can work with, a root cause analysis. Root cause analysis is difficult and it's deep. I wouldn't say you need to do that for every single goal that you have. Do this for those goals that you know are going to be important, where it is complicated. As an example, one of the reasons that we don't all have the reading scores we want is what? Is it easy to teach a child to read? No. Have you seen elementary teachers who cannot teach children to read? I have. Not very well, right? It's hard. It's not easy. It's complicated. So if you're going to diagnose why that teacher can't teach kids to read, it may require some pretty deep analysis, some understanding. And guess what's going to take? For me, it's data. As an example, I like to tell stories. So we were looking at first grade, and every year we had teachers who would refer 2 to 5 of their kids for interventions, for building level intense interventions, and we'd have the others who never would intervene, would have anybody, right? Or one every 3 or 4 years. So how does one teacher have 20% of their students not meeting grade level standards, and the other one has one every 3 or 4 years? But we did running records. We made that as a part of their process. Anybody had elementary teachers use running records? And they got pretty good at it, and we got good at evaluating and following them, and guess what? We started to see more. It just opened it up. What was missing in some rooms, and we saw trends and we saw patterns, and that data informed us. And we were able to then target our professional learning for the teacher, support the kids. Wow, a diagnostic piece of information, and it was really, really helpful. So I liked this slide. I actually borrowed this from someone else. I think that's one of the things we talked about is, making sure if you've got 10 student achievement goals and 2 or 3 strategies and 10 action plans, you cannot monitor 150 action plans. Can't do it. So really keep it to something that's digestible and or again, focus then on the ones that are the most important. So if your 7th goal is about attendance, because attendance is important and it's important to you, and you'll spend some time on it, not as much, there are layers to that, if you will. But just be careful not to do so much that you, and let's talk about that as strategic. If your chronic absenteeism rate is 29, 34, 38%, and there are districts and buildings across our state that are that and more, if you don't fix that, does it matter? Nope. They don't come, can't learn. And so where should that be on your priority? If you're 38. 35, I don't know I'm not saying there's a cutoff number, but right? That's got to be on the top. It's got to be on the top. Because if they don't come, they don't learn. And so there's another example of prioritizing what you're going to do. So just wanted to have you guys see that again. I love that slide. No, it's just a nice graphic. It does bring it all together, that there are things that come together that lead you to your goal. All right. So we've talked about diagnosing, talked a little bit about selecting interventions. Let me share with you that at this point, we'll wait till we come full circle on innovation station. There are places you can go to get interventions. Research your interventions, plan them, put them in place, and stay with them. Don't switch curriculums. Don't switch and turn things on teachers' heads every 2 or 3 years because it's not working like you thought it would. Really work at it. if it's research-based and you have found that it has worked in other places, it will work in your district. It'll work in your building. You've got to do it well. And so be careful on that selection process. So in the plan, you got to have SMART goals. So we talked about the strategic, S is strategic or specific. M, measurable. A, attainable. R is results oriented. And T is time bound. So here's an opportunity for us to talk a little bit. One of the things that we see in strategic plans, like we see both sides of the attainable. And some people would say SMART C goals. What's the C stand for? Anybody know or remember? Challenge. So we've seen both sides. So the attainable to the challenging, we've seen folks who will put a 0.2, 0.3 increase a year for 5 years and have a 1.2% increase over 5 years. And their data is relatively high in some cases. Some cases it's only moderately high. That's not very challenging. We've seen the other side, some of the districts that are at 25 or 30% are building, and in 5 years they're going to be 80. Well, I mean, I don't think that's smart because, you know, if I go back to that book we read, they set realistic goals and did not give up on them. I'm a bigger believer in that. Some people would say shoot for the stars, and if you miss, you hit the sky kind of thing. Okay, you could maybe get me to believe that. But 25, 30% to 80 in 5 years, it's just a plan to fail. Put it on a number that you think is doable, and then hold yourself and everybody in your district building accountable for that number. Or at least something close to it. Your trajectory should be so that you are excited about what's happening. So be careful with those goals.
And if that means you need to actually do the math, to actually see how many students you're talking about moving, as he said, with some of the percentages we've seen, I've seen them where actually you're moving 1/10 of a student. Not even one student. That is not school improvement. That is not any type of growth. And we're talking about within a year's time. So if you need to actually do the math, so you can see what that number is that you're actually trying to move in a year's time.
I have a question about individual school goals in
Okay.
relation to the district goal and then the state goal.
Okay.
So the state goal of 75 is what our district has adopted. So we have a wide range. We have schools that are already at 80, 82, 85, and then we have schools that are in that range of 25%. So I did the math across our 18 elementary schools and thinking that the ones who are already there need to improve a little more, but still there's not a lot of wiggle room
Sure.
for all of those. So thinking that the ones that are at 20, we could give and take, they could be at 60 if we're at 90 at the higher ones, but there's still not a lot of give and take there. So on your end, the mirroring of the district plan, what does that mean?
So I'm not sure. In other words, it doesn't have to mathematically come to 75% per se. You know, rate of improvement is based upon a number of factors, but number one would be your baseline, right? So the school that's at 80%, their rate of improvement is going to look different than a different school that's even in your district is at 20 or 25%. But one of the things I would look at is poverty rates, like schools. Are they achieving at what would be typical for their demographic? If that's the case, then their rate of improvement might just be moderate. In other words, we still want to be better than average,
Yeah.
right? I don't want to be just as good as my neighbor, and that's all. But if they're underachieving, so you look at that poverty rate, you look at other schools, and you go, wow, there are schools out there that are getting 40%, we're getting 25, then I think that rate of improvement should be more aggressive. So inform that rate of improvement with those kinds of factors.
Okay.
And then where it lands, it lands. You know, your goal is to get this, our goal is to get to 75%. Your goal is to do the same. And like you said, you might be there. If the 80 gets to 84 and 25 gets to 40 and,
Yeah.
you know.
And also you can look at something. Because there are subgroups that actually bring it down a whole lot compared to other subgroups. So if you take a look at the subgroups and target the particular subgroup that's bringing your apple shine, it makes a big difference.
That is low hanging fruit, and that's one of the things that I'm surprised. So last year, Demeter and I were a two-man team, basically. I read about 600 school plans. I probably read, there was one district who did subgroup plans across the district. I mean, that just was, that was an expectation. Other than that, I probably didn't read 10 buildings that had a subgroup plan. Subgroup goal, I should say. That amazes me and surprises me. Because I'd look at their data and guess what? They had, in some cases, multiple subgroups. Poverty, Black, special ed. They had places that they could go, Hispanic, and they could really start to target some interventions, some supports, have conversations at least, and make some goals about their subgroups. All right. Anything else in the plan? We got that one covered. So, a goal, you guys are certainly there. You want it to be something that's moving students forward. The action plan are those steps. The action plan, of course, is where the rubber meets the road. You write a goal all day. I'm a bad football coach, and we were 1-9 last year. Next year, we're going to be 9-1. How are you going to do it? I don't know. We'll be 9-1. Right? And so, again, that action plan is driven by the diagnostics. The more specific and targeted that is, the better chance it has of being effective in getting you to where you want to go. So when you're doing the process of planning, of course, you're now deciding which of those 4 areas. Let me share with you, too, another thing that we see way too much of in both teacher admin quality and school climate is the use of report card survey data. I would say that 75%, maybe more, of the buildings in South Carolina have a goal that includes survey data, and the baseline is above 90%. So 92, 94, 91.7% of the teachers, students, whatever, think this is good. And they're going to go from 91.7 to 93.8 in 5 years. Is that going to move kids? Is that going to change outcomes? Absolutely not. It's just easy data to mine. So whatever level of authority you're in, please don't let your building principals opt out on that. That's just a dumb goal that's made so that you can mine data easily, maybe even meet it. And in many cases, it's just skewed data anyway, because they may have given those surveys out to their best parents at a PTA meeting. We've seen that. We've had people tell us. We've seen the end size be 30 surveys. Yeah. And they're going to go from 90 to 92. Well, with 30 surveys, that's not even a full survey. Not even one parent. Yeah. I mean, it's just silly data, right? And it's not strategic. Now, if you want to have 4 goals and that's your 4th one, whatever, right? Although why would you have a goal that doesn't, it's not going to change student outcomes. Now, on the con side, if you had surveys and for 3 straight years, your parents at a 50% rate said, I'm not happy. Okay, you need to address that. So I'm not saying survey data is bad, but 98% of it has a baseline of 90% or higher in the goals I've read. I mean, it's just easy data. I think sometimes it's an attaboy. Like, look at us, we got that one, and that's good. Okay. So improvement plans are informed by, of course, your assets, your needs. I told a story earlier. So we wanted to include coaching in our English language arts, predominantly reading areas at the elementary level. And so we did some research, and we had 2 people that we felt were assets. They were really, really good reading teachers. I mean, veterans, and they wanted to do it. So we brought them out of the classroom and made them coaches. Put them in classrooms, and they went and they co-planned, co-taught, co-assessed, followed the models, right, for about 2 weeks. And we would go back after they were done and go back in that teacher's classroom, did the teacher look different? In our case, they did not. We went, wow, okay. So we revised it and we took our academic coaches and we put them in classrooms for about 4 weeks. Went back with the teachers. In some cases they were better, but in many they still were not. We ended up at 8 to 9 weeks is how long we had our academic coaches embedded in the classroom. That's a lot of time, a lot of resource, and a lot of money. But guess what? When they left, almost every teacher was different when they left. That's what we wanted, right? That's what it costs. It is what it is. And so we had assets, we wanted to use them, but it took us literally 3 or 4 years to get it to where it actually made a difference. And so that's that, when we talk about monitoring, that's the monitoring that we do. Because there are people who have coaches. And they go into classrooms and they do, I do, we do, you do, and they're in there for 1 day, and then they go down the hallway, then they go to this building, they go that. At the end of 5 years, what data do you have that says the teachers are different? Do you have any data? And if they're not, what the heck are you doing? Why would you do that for 5 years? It's no different in these plans I read. People are going to reduce class size. Been on their plan for 3 cycles, 5-year cycles, 15 years. I look at their data, guess what their data says? Not working. What would John Hattie's research say about class size? Not that effective. One of the least impactful things you can do, and it's expensive. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but one thing I always throw out, your personal child has a choice of being in a classroom with an outstanding teacher and 28 kids, or a below average teacher and 18 kids. Which one you put your kid in? That's not even hard. The one with 28 kids, that's where my kid's going. Give me the great teacher, right? Reducing class size is not a great strategy most times. It's not what you need. And some people have never given up on it. They just continue to do that same thing. Yes.
And hit this piece. When you're looking at those assets, also look at your financial assets that go with that. That's your titles. I explained to the group earlier. Think of it this way. The district strategic plan is an umbrella. Everything fits inside and underneath that umbrella. Titles, your schools, your special ed, your anything else fits under that one strategic plan. So with that asset, a lot of times we see down on funding source, TBD. You haven't figured out how you're gonna pay for it. Why haven't you put Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, all of those down there? Those are assets that can be used in these plans to help you get where you need to go. And if you play your cards right and you do this, and you do the whole plan correctly, you should be able to take your DSSR and the strategies that are in there and copy and paste over into your Title I plans. They should be one and the same. Then you've cut out all the middle work of this one over here making up some things that we're gonna do, and this building's making up some things to do. It's already in their DSSR plan, pull it over and use it. So think through that process of using your title funds as your assets. Those are things you have that you can leverage that, some schools have it, some schools don't, depending on poverty and everything else that's in between. But those are assets that will help you get to where you need to go.
Absolutely. Yep. That's what we, all right, again, we don't have a tool to help you with a one plan. It's still best practices. You still should be looking at all the resources together for impacting kids. So you got to look at research on effective schools, not only national research, but locally. Look at the state data. Is there a school that's demographics look like yours, but their results have been consistently higher? Because there could very well be that. What do they do? What's different? What can I glean from that? That's really important. Implementation science. Lots of research available. What interventions work? What works clearinghouse, right? And we have all this on Innovation Station. For whom, under what circumstances? The science of learning. There are so many opportunities for resources. Again, do your research, find the resources and interventions that you think will work, and commit to that. The story I just shared with the academic coaching model. We could have easily, after 3 or 4 years, said, you know what? academic coaching didn't work in our district, because it didn't. Under the circumstances that we used academic coaching, the first three cycles, very few teachers looked different after she was done. And these two ladies were phenomenal. Just wasn't enough time. Wasn't enough, not to change the pedagogy, in some cases of a 15, 20, 25-year teacher. I mean, we wanted them to look different. That's a lot of work. But, you know, and it took us longer to get there then, but you know what? We had meaningful results. And so that's an example of, we could have given up on it, but it's research-based. And we knew, our instincts told us that if you put a really good teacher in with a teacher who's not so good, and have them just co-plan, co-teach, co-assess, and they have a viable curriculum, how could they not get there, right? They got to eventually, and they did. So writing a performance goal, very simple, has to be smart. We want it to be attainable, but we also want it to be challenging. So again, if you are working with some of your building administrators, you know, check those, have those conversations. Make sure they pick a number that they're gonna hold themselves to. I mean, not you lose your job, hold yourself to, but, right, there should be some accountability. There should be some pride. And I think that's that developed in the culture. Again, if you read that book that I shared with you, and not that that's the end all be all book, but that's what they did so well. It isn't the pedagogy, it's the culture, it's the high expectations and the idea that we can do this and we're gonna do this. And it's not acceptable until we do. I'm all about that. I'm all about that. So we talked about that, Smart C, right? We see lots of goals that are really not Smart C. I'll give you an example of one that's challenging. The good news is in some cases, some people will write a teacher admin goal about professional learning. All right. But what I see way too often is I've got to find data that's easy. I know. My goal will be 100% of our third grade teachers will attend the math training for our new curriculum. Is the outcome of that going to probably move student achievement? That they go? Just that they go? No. That's a bad goal. It's not strategic. Attendance at a professional learning opportunity does not equate increases. What does equate is if they're implementing and using those strategies. So my goal should be something along the lines of I have a rubric to measure them, or in walkthroughs, I have a checklist of things I want to see within the evaluation, whatever it is you want to use to measure. Did the teachers learn? And are they implementing that learning? Right? That they attended is not a SMART goal. It's not strategic, not specific, because probably 100% of them are going to go, probably, because maybe during their workday. Yeah, they'll go, sure. Okay, our performance goal is checked. Really? They didn't do anything.
And also, any goals that have a very high percentage for your baseline is not strategic. It's really not helping you with the growth that you need to get here toward. So keep that in mind as well, because I've seen some to just say maintain 100% or something.
We don't even accept those anymore.
Right. Those will be.
Yeah, if you set us a goal that's on a high baseline, there's no number, but anything probably much above 95, it's going to be rejected. It's not strategic. You know, if you're 97% of whatever it is you do, don't. And if you want to make that your fifth goal because you're proud of it and it's something you work, seriously, that's fine. We'll accept that. But there's going to be a strategic goal.
Another goal.
Right.
In that category.
Right. So action plans, the what is the goal, the how are the action steps. When, deadline, who, person responsible. Those are all important parts of that process to make sure that you guys understand how that implementation will go within that plan, right? So some common challenges. One of them is a lack of time. And I'm talking specifically on the initial for sure, because getting all those stakeholders together, if you've led a strategic plan, and I have several times, it is a monster. It took us months and months to get to where we wanted to be. And at some point, you do have to get a little bit smaller, because if you're too big and those stakeholders are all, I mean, you'll end up in minutia so you have to have a plan for that. But lack of time. Same with the annual updates. You know, we see updates that are submitted back to us that clearly somebody went and plucked a couple pieces of data and stuck it in there and didn't do anything. You should revise your executive summary in an update, because you should have more data and more information. You absolutely should have data. Now, how many of you are working in arrears when you do your data? In other words, you're using last year's report card. Couple shaking your heads. Okay, some of you work in arrears. When you work in arrears, that means all your data should be in, because you're working a year in arrears. Bad thing about that is, you know, that data is not very timely, but you can fill out your chart. For those of you that aren't working in arrears, you're going to have report card data that you won't have yet. We asked you, though, to put TBD, to be determined, something in there that says you're going to look at it. The other part of that is many of you don't put in the data that you do have. So if you had a winter benchmark goal, all right, that 57% of your third graders would be on grade level on your winter benchmark, don't leave that blank. You have that data. It was your winter benchmark. If you've got a goal on even chronic absenteeism, anything that comes out of Power School, some discipline data. I know it's only probably late March to mid-April. Put it in there. I mean, you should be curious. How are we doing? What's it say right now? If you want to go back and update it, that's fine. But unfortunately, sometimes on updates, we've had people just resubmit the plan. Data boxes are blank, executive summary, nothing's been changed. And so we are partly to blame, because we've probably been a little more lax than we should, but we're stepping up our game. And so we're asking you to make sure that that's in there, okay? Makes sense? Anybody questions on update submissions? Yes.
So if your performance goal is written, let's say it's for SE Ready or it's AOC, our superintendent wants us to have it aligned to this. So if we're writing our SE Ready goal for academic achievement or student achievement for elementary school, would it be more advisable to have in your interim performance where you have your anticipated and actual data? Would it be better to have both, where you have your lag data of SE Ready data each year and have your math data or your iReady data?
Absolutely. Sure. We'd love to see that. Does that make sense to you? So if you're putting interim data in there, your annual update data, and it's a year in arrears, to be truthful, you're filling in a box. I don't know what that data means to you. It doesn't mean anything to me, because that means it's over a year old. Okay, so you were compliant, and if that's what you're doing and that's what your superintendent wants you to do, that's okay. I hope you're doing more than that as you're doing your student or your school improvement process, because if all you're doing is looking at data once it becomes a year and a half old, my goodness, yeah, that's not very valuable. And we know that April 30th is problematic, right? So it's due and you don't have your data. Here's the other thing I guess I would tell you. You should have way fewer report card goals than you do on goals that you can monitor throughout the year. Your goal should be primarily things that are not report card goals. Report card data is important. You absolutely should look at it, and you should spend time on it every year. That's an autopsy. It's over, right? So if the only student achievement goal you have is SC Ready or EOC, and that's the only one, what are you looking at? I hope you're doing something. I hope you're right. You can't be diagnostic with that data. It's third grade's over. You could help the third grade staff to say, and again, there's value to that data, no question. We spent weeks on it, but what we spent way more time on is that data throughout the year, right? The benchmarks, the common summative assessments, the diagnostic running records, I could go on and on and on. All those things that we looked at that were valuable to us.
So one quick question.
Yes.
So we're in our 5th year
Mhm.
of our plan, and we have changed the vendor,
Okay,
okay? And the vendor, let's say, started off with A for the first 3 years. And then for the last 2 years, we have moved to a different vendor
okay,
for B, okay? So what I've told the schools to do is that while we want to keep the performance goal the same, we're going to show for the first 3 years the data metric that was A, and then we'll do TBA to show for the last 2 years that we have switched. And then we'll list the second data point as assessment B. And then the first 3 years, of course, will be NA. And then we'll show the performance goals for the last 2 years. Is that okay?
yeah, so so if you've got 2 years though, so you're gonna rewrite a new goal with a different interim measure because
Yes.
you have data from last year. So even one data point, to me, would allow you to say, okay, so that's a baseline.
Right,
Let's do an interim goal for our last update
right. Okay,
and rewrite it. You just end the other goal. Just say this goal is no longer valid. We no longer use this interim assessment. Done.
okay.
And then write a new goal with your new baseline and then have one
So
spot.
you still want to see that, so do you want us to keep that goal in there?
You can keep the old one in there.
Okay, so just leave it there and just put a note saying it has ended
Yep.
and then start fresh.
And,
with the-
and again, it's more about, hopefully some of your stakeholders are seeing this information or are looking at it. So we still want to see it and see it
Okay.
there, so that when we close out your 5-year cycle, we knew you had interim goals from the first 3 years, just on a different vendor.
Okay,
So yes, don't delete it. Just put a note that says this goal is no longer valid as this vendor assessment is no longer used in our district, and then you write a new one.
Where would that note go?
I mean, it could go in the interim box for that, I mean,
Or executive summary.
or the executive summary.
because I left it on the same goal, but still put a note.
You could put it in bold or italics right below the performance goal
Yeah.
itself. I mean, style points in this process is not important. Yeah, we don't.
So what I hear, I think, is that SC Ready data does not have to be part of our strategic goal whatsoever.
Doesn't have to be.
It does not have to be. And assuming that we are using a quality interim assessment that would be correlated to the state summative, that should take care of that. That our
Absolutely.
strategic plan is our interim, our formative assessment to be XYZ. And then I, as the accountability, would go that next step to make sure that it is
Right.
correlated and matches up, but that does not have to be part of our strategic plan.
Correct. Again, so I like what you said. So you didn't say, we're not gonna look at report card data anymore. It's very important. But it's less important than that other data. And
Because
if-
it's after the fact.
I was just gonna say, and imagine if you are, I think you were one of the ones who shook your head, yeah, we're working with our data in arrears. I mean, for any stakeholder, for anybody who would look at your data that says in 2025 and 2023, we had this data, it's okay. And I'm in no way trying to minimize, mock, or say report card. It's important. It's very important and it's very meaningful, but for this process, it should be secondary.
So I'm just trying to make sure I understand. We've been writing SC Ready goals like for K through 8. It would be okay to change that now and use, let's say, our instrument is iReady.
Mhm.
And instead of going from, SC Ready year to year in the spring, we could write potentially a winter to winter goal.
Mm-hmm.
And
With a
then,
benchmark.
okay,
Now, here's what I would ask you to do. I want you and your stakeholders to determine, is that a strategic goal? There are some districts who I've seen, they have their winter benchmark for iReady, and I'm not picking on iReady. And then their SC Ready goals, I mean, those numbers are significantly different. And so obviously I've had some conversations to say, is that strategic or what, so I want you to look at that too. So don't just put it in there because it's your vendor. Put it in there because you would say, that data has told me over the course of year, then awesome. That it's
It's actually
reliable,
more rigorous.
there you go, perfect.
I'm thinking in my plan, at least in one of them, there's a goal that says we'll maintain 100% da 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 da, or we'll maintain da 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 da, but we're still in the middle of a planning cycle. Can we go ahead and adjust that goal or let that ride out and put it in the next cycle?
You've already hit 100%.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would probably just write in there that we reached 100% and this goal, will be terminated for now. I mean, it's up to you. Again, there are people who, there was some goal they want to get 100%, let's say it was teacher retention. And you had a couple of years somehow, or whatever it was, but you're very proud of that number. And you want it, that just can't be the only goal. That's not strategic.
Right.
Yeah. So you can do it any way you want. You can keep it, you can keep reporting on it, you can cease it, don't delete it. Don't delete anything. Just cease reporting on it and cease focusing on it because it's no longer a strategic goal.
But if I cease reporting on it, do I need to create a new one or just let it?
If it was
ride
the
out?
only goal, yes.
But if I had two goals, I'm okay.
You wouldn't have to. You have to have one.
And I would still watch it, especially something like teacher retention, because you could have had a great 2 years.
Mhm.
And that third year, everybody's like, so,
Waiting on each other.
just, yeah, that's the way it happens sometimes. So keep that in mind as well, to make sure it stays at that percentage.
So that's why I would say you don't have to cease it, depending upon the goal and how important it is to you. I agree with the better 100%. But if it's your only goal, you're gonna have to write another one, but if you have another one, then you're good.
So I'm going to propose, and I'll probably get stung out of the room. But for our next plan, our annual evaluation for year 3,
Okay.
we're
Update 3.
gonna do away with supporting SC Ready as our data to support our academic goals. We're gonna
You
start
don't
doing it
have to do
already.
away with it unless you want to.
Well, it's not there on April
Right.
30th.
And
So
so,
this way,
Right, I ended up
creates
putting in
less
last
work
year.
for me, because then I always go TBD.
well, I
have to go
would
back and
talk
put
to
it in.
whatever it is you report to and sell it to them under those circumstances. We're reporting old data. It's not meaningful. It's not purposeful. Now, if it's your only goal, you gotta write a replacement goal, but that's meaningful. There should be conversations about, okay, SC Ready, we're reporting it in arrears. It's already old data when we report it in August. So what can we do? What goal can we set that will really drive us towards meeting our benchmark? Ultimately, you want to improve your SC Ready scores, but you just want to monitor those goals that are
Right.
more
because I
timely.
don't- Exactly.
So I'd have those conversations with your superior, whoever that is, all the way up to the superintendent if necessary, to say, this is what we want to do and this is why. And what I'm saying to you is not a change in philosophy. We're just re-emphasizing more what's best practices. Insufficient tools. So, one of the other challenges, do you have the data? Do you have the people who can help you mine the data and make it meaningful? Do you have the academic coaches? Do you have the things that you need to make sure asking the wrong questions, that could go back to the, we're gonna get this classroom size down to where it'll make a difference. Well, is that the right question to be asking? Is that what the problem is? Jumping to solutions, we're gonna get a new curriculum in math because this one has been here for 3 years and our scores haven't moved an inch. Well, is the curriculum, is there research to say that it works? Have the math experts in your district looked at it and when you bought it said, yes, this has all the foundational principles we want for math instruction, then why are you going away from it? What have you not done to increase your math outcomes? And then ineffective implementation and monitoring. Too many times, folks will put in a new math curriculum, a new reading program, a new whatever it is, do a minimal amount of training. We've talked to teachers and districts. How much training did you have for that? We had a 2-hour session in August. And how about after that? Any support? No. Do you use PLCs? Do you talk? Not really. And so those are some of those kinds of things you really need to look at, is are you implementing it with fidelity? And then are you monitoring it and making adjustments as necessary? Or are you looking at your SC Ready scores and saying, oh, the reading scores didn't go up again this year. I thought that new curriculum really would do it. Executive summary, we've talked about that a little bit. I really haven't emphasized that yet. I do want to share with you that your executive summary is for you. We're going to read it, but it should be a really good summary synopsis of what your challenges are. What the executive summary is the summary of the needs assessment. What did we find? If you went to your doctor and you had an ailment that's been bothering you for 4 months, and you are just ready to fit, right? I mean, you just can't take it. And he took your temperature and said, I don't know what's going on. Would you be satisfied? No. Do more diagnostics. Understand at a deep level. And so that executive summary should be a written summary of what is going on. It's causing us to not have our kids meet the standards we want them to meet. Any and every stakeholder should be able to read that and go, wow, okay. And then from that, of course, that enables and drives your plan. You can see some of the bullet points as to what happens. People don't identify the need and get specific. They haven't done a deep dive. They haven't made the appropriate correlations. In other words, you know, we didn't have enough training for our new curriculum. Okay, so what does that mean? What does that look like? And then analyze it at a deep level. What is it? How's that impacting kids, teachers?
Can we go back to that? Go back and look at on the right. What is that saying?
So that just says, those are some of the areas of discrepancy. That's right from the actual state regs. You should have discrepancies in student achievement. You should have discrepancies in achievement by subgroup. Less than 10% of the buildings and districts in South Carolina have that. Less than 10%, maybe less than 5%. You should have graduation rate. If it's 95, 98%, then say it is and you're happy with it, or you know, whatever, but you should be talking about it. These are the things that our state school board said years ago you should be looking at.
And we have to have them in our plan, is what you're
You
saying.
should have them in your plan. You should. You should. I'm not gonna say have to yet. I'm sorry.
Like as in our executive summary, we should address them in our executive summary and look at them to
You should have
determine.
data to support it. You
Okay.
should have data to say our graduation rate was this. Here's our trend for the last 4 years. Here's where it's going. Here's why. That should be in there.
But if it is at an
You
appropriate
don't have to make a goal.
level, we don't have to include it in the
You, technically, a district has to make 4 goals, right? Student achievement, teacher admin quality, school climate, GT. Building has to make 3. Then the 3, not GT. Doesn't have to. Can you do more? Yes. Should you have a subgroup? Absolutely, you should have a subgroup goal. There's not a building in this state that doesn't have a subgroup who's performing at a level that should make them have a goal. There's not one. And maybe in almost any state.
agreement.
All right, so here's some of the things that we see and just some problematic challenges when you're writing your performance goals. We see huge cohorts. We've seen districts say 3rd through 8th graders on ELA and math, whether it's math scores or whether it's SC Ready. In some districts, in some buildings, that's a cohort of 500,000, 2,000 kids. That's too big. How can you determine where your challenges are? That's not strategic. If you've got a cohort that's humongous. District level, no way should it be more than 1 content area, 1 grade level. Building, if you're a tiny building and you wanted to do 3rd and 4th graders or 3rd, 4th, I mean, maybe you could. There are a few tiny districts in our state, but generally don't have big cohorts. You need to, 3rd grade might be fine, 4th grade's not. Split them out. Tease that data out so that you can follow it, so we can see it. So what's going on, right?
So you don't have to address every grade level in every subject.
You don't have to. You could have 1 goal, 3rd grade ELA, but don't make the cohorts big. Don't make the cohorts so big that you can't truly understand what's working and what's not. I can't put a number on that, but you know, right? If it's too big, it's not strategic.
Was there something somewhere at some point that said you had to have an ELA and a math?
Student achievement, you have to have one goal. You don't have to. I'd be surprised if you didn't. No, the reg by compliance, you have to have one student achievement goal. Now, could you interpret it that, I mean, you know, yeah, you should. I couldn't possibly imagine that you wouldn't have. Are you happy with your math scores? Then you should have a math goal. Then. But you don't have to have, and of course, science, and of course, but you know, you don't have to do every one of them. You don't have to.
And even if you do them, looking at that top goal where it says 60% of them, for ELA, that could be easy. But for math, if your baseline is 20%, that's a different story. So even if you have both of them, you need to specify what percentage do you want for ELA and what percentage do you want for math? Because most of the time, it should not be the same thing.
Well, and I was also thinking that at the district level, we should have something for elementary, middle, and high.
That's my thought.
Yeah, I do too.
I mean, I would
I
be
do.
looking at my EOC, grad rate, I mean, that's kind of.
Yeah.
If at the district level, they want to combine it because they want to see how it's looking, it's okay. But I would still say that most districts have multiple student achievement goals. To me, that one's very strategic, but they'll have others that are strategic. As long as you have one strategic goal, you can write as many other goals as you want. So if a district did want to do that, to say, you know what, across the district, our middle school ELA number needs to go up, and so we're gonna make it ELA across, okay. I get it, not a bad goal. Because what they're probably gonna do then is they're gonna go at each building and look, okay, how did building A, B, C, D, you know, so, I mean, they're gonna break it down. I had a district actually that was one of the best, who I had this discussion with. And that's what they said to me. They said, we don't want to write interim goals for every single junior high. It was a pretty large district and blah. And I said, okay, get it. Yep. They said, are we going to look at every single one of them? Absolutely. We'll put them on a table. We'll dissect it. We'll, you know, I said, okay, but for your goal, you just want to do it that way. Class size, again, sometimes just picking things that aren't strategic. I'm really picking on class size, but we've seen lots of different things like that. Third one is that professional learning, just attendance. Not strategic. It's got to be some rubric that measures the learning and implementation. The last one are those high baselines. We will not accept any of these. This one, if it's something that's been in a plan, and we can go back, and it's been there for, as an example. Again, I'm not picking on the reduced class size, because you could have it in there and it could be pertinent to you. But I want that to come through a process. I want a group of stakeholders to say that. Did research, selected interventions, looked at the leading research, because if they did that, there's got to be some extenuating circumstances, probably. And whatever, reducing class size can bump students. It's just, come on.
That's one more question. Back to that first one for 3rd through 8th grade. So if you were in elementary school, would you want, and I know you kind of asked this, each grade separate, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, or they pick the grade that's struggling that year, or can they say 3rd through 5th, or what would be the recommendation?
As long as the cohort's not too big. So if you're a smaller school and you had just 3rd and 4th grade, or even 3rd through 5th, I would never do 2 content areas.
Right, yeah, I agree with
And
that.
if they're similar, so
I'm
let's,
thinking of the grade
so
combination.
just like the veteran said, let's say 3rd grade's at 40%, 5th grade's at 60%, you wouldn't want to combine those to say combined we'll get it 55, because then 6th grade could go down. Or 5th
Yeah.
grade. So it just depends upon all those factors. Ideally, split it out by content and by grade.
Because even like the next year, like if you 3rd grade is struggling this year, next year, those are gonna be your 4th graders.
It
So
could be
really,
the
if you were
cohort.
strategic, you would want to go 3rd, that's.
It could be the cohort.
But it's a
And-
realistic, yeah.
And you know what? I'm gonna tell you, I'll bet you there aren't 30% of the districts in South Carolina that are truly looking at cohort data like that and breaking it down. They aren't, but absolutely, you should.
Yeah.
That'll inform you. If in 3rd grade they were at 34% and in 4th grade they were at 46, the other factor, of course, is what's the state average on the test? Because we all know some tests are a little harder than others. You need to look at all that data to give you the context. And so that's why I want it broken down. I want the context. I want to be able to understand what happened. So our third graders who scored higher in the fourth grade test, if the state average went up 8% and they went up 6%, it's just a little easier test this year, right? And so, okay, so they didn't move as much as I think. I'll take what I can get, right? But I need to put that in context. All right. So implement in the school improvement model. So we're all the way around here to number 4. Collecting information, making sure you're timely. That's the biggest thing. If you hear that from me today about this, it's that. In my role as an educator for 40 plus years, data really informed how I did my work. When I was a teacher, when I was a building administrator, all the way up to being a superintendent. Timely data informed me. And I've shared several stories about real examples of how that worked. And I could share many more. So in that implementation, make sure you're monitoring it. Make sure you're following it. Like I shared with you, you can go into a classroom. If you're, how many of you are building principals? How many are building principals? How many are district level administrators? Okay, so most of you. So I'm assuming you've probably done some going through multiple classrooms. You can see how different it looks if you see that same initiative, right? And so you're going to have differences. That's okay. But you can't have huge ranges of differences. You've got to help to work to, and so that implementation is, what do I need to do to support those teachers? This room doesn't look like those ones where kids are learning. So 3 drivers in that area: human capital or competency. If your teacher's ability doesn't change, don't expect changes in student outcomes. Organization and leadership. I love that quote, school leaders or schools improve when leaders implement well. If you've ever worked at district level, it sounds like most of you have, the buildings look different with different principals, without a question. Without a question. Some are just better than others, and that's okay. It's going to be that way. But you got to work to, of course, support those others. Leadership matters. I'm going to skip a little bit. So organization, those core processes, using data, identifying and mitigating barriers. One of the barriers we just talked about, kids who don't come to school. How do you mitigate those? And I know it's a challenge. The good news is there's a lot more research today than there was even 5 years ago because of COVID and other things. You know, doesn't mean it all works, but at least there are some folks out there doing some action research. And that's the other thing. Use your data. I say use your data as action research. That was my story about our academic program. That was action research. We didn't have hard data, but we knew anecdotally that 2 weeks didn't work. So I wanted to spend, what time is it, Eric?
It's 2:37.
Okay. Talk a little bit about leadership, because I talked about culture. Culture comes from leadership. I really like this slide. I won't read the quotes, but I do want to just real quick go over it. Leading is teaching. I got to tell you, I don't know how you guys feel. I was as much a teacher when I was a superintendent as I was another classroom teacher. I didn't teach kids, worked with adults. I miss kids because adults are a pain in the neck. Not really, but you know.
Not really.
And it's teaching. It's teaching. That's what it is. That's what I did as a superintendent. I was a teacher. It's a teacher of adults. Leaders are servants. I talked about culture. People will only work as hard for you as if they trust you, as much as they trust. If they don't think you're a servant, if they don't think you're there for kids, you can say all the things you want. They're not following you. Got to be a servant. Dispositional versus positional. I was a firm believer, which helped me with all of this as superintendent. It was not positional. It was dispositional. Review that story about the elementary guidance counselor, school counselor, who saw something and I could tell you 10 more stories just like that. And we of course celebrated her for her dispositional leadership. She became a leader and took a role, and she helped kids. Collective leadership, that's really almost an outreach of that. Leaders develop cultures. and I don't know if you guys are reading the quotes, but I think I love this quote. Vision oriented and student centered. One of the things that you heard me say as a superintendent is about kids. Our vision was basically kids come first. That was a statement that was everywhere in our district. Kids come first. When we made decisions, how did it impact kids, not adults? And I worked in Ohio. I don't know if any of you are from the Northeast, but unions are pretty big there. And we didn't care. How does this impact kids, not adults? Leaders are responsible and accountable. I love that quote. The lowest performing teacher in your building sets the standard for what's acceptable. Is that not true? Is that not true? Right? How many principals have you talked to and said, oh my gosh, I got this guy? How many years has he been in your building? Oh, he's been here for 9 years with me. And he's terrible? What are you doing? Right? You just denigrated yourself in my mind. I love that quote, and that's the truth. Because I can't tell you how many times I had that conversation with some principals once I became a superintendent. So research confirms that leaders influence student achievement, influence teacher and staff decisions, and they influence program and policy implementation. So here's another thing that you need to look at, since it sounds like many of you are district level. How do we train our principals to be academic leaders? Right? Because if you've got an elementary principal who doesn't understand literacy, you better support that, he or she. You better put somebody in that building who does understand literacy, because I've seen it. And the teachers are flailing because they're not getting into observations, they don't get any real feedback, walkthroughs, nobody's help. I mean, the principal doesn't, and that it could just be that the principal was a middle school principal and he got moved there or she because they're not very good or because that seemed like a better fit. They don't understand literacy. Can't you better support them. Levers for improvement, having instructional leadership teams, building an effective instructional coaching program. How many of you would say you have an effective instructional coaching program? Okay. All right, awesome. Let me tell you something. That changed our district I worked in. Changed it. The commitment we made to that. Think about it. Teachers are in classrooms. It's still an isolated type of work, isn't it? You are in a classroom. Who's there with you? Kids. How many times do you get feedback? You know, and if your principal's not very good, you may never get feedback your entire career. For sure, the whole year, right? Who helps you get better? My background was in coaching, and it just made all the sense in the world to me. You can't, that would be like taking one of your basketball players and saying, go in the other gym and shoot around, dribble and shoot. You'll be better at basketball, right? That's because that's what basketball, and it is, right? But go in there and do, but come on, who would ever coach like that? Your teachers need coaching, they need help, they need support. That's huge. And then that last one, if you're doing a PLC well, if your data isn't different from being in a PLC, you're not doing it well. I'm just telling you. Our data was different. It was different. Rick Dufour, you know the name? District I worked in 2 most of my career. Rick Dufour retired as a superintendent, hadn't been out for a year. We had him home for a week. I was a building principal. Our curriculum person, our assistant superintendent, read his stuff, bought it. He came in, and I'm going to tell you something. It's just amazing what that district does. So here was a research study. We were talking about leadership, but they couldn't find a single documented case of a school that managed to turn around the student achievement directory in the absence of talent and leadership. How about that? That's pretty telling. I don't know if you know those names, but those are 2 of the leading educational researchers in the country. And leadership. I mean, you got to have leadership. Here's another one. In thousands of cases. And so I wanted to emphasize culture, right, over the structure. Because we talk a lot about structure. And there's a lot of districts and a lot of buildings that know how to put the structure together for a strategic plan or school improvement initiative. What they don't have is the leadership and the culture to do it. And I just cannot overemphasize that. Adult learning is directly and positively linked. If you're not helping your teachers get better, you're doing a lot of stuff. I love that quote. Teachers don't leave schools, they leave leaders. You guys know that's true. Not every time, but it's for sure true. So the last part of that is monitor and evaluate, and we're gonna run out of time. But, lots of change, not much improvement, and if that's the case, be reflective. Just sit down and have conversations with those people that you know truly care about kids. What are we doing? What are we missing? What can we do differently? And maybe we don't need to change some things. Maybe we just need to do them better. This is just a review of all the things we've kind of gone over, those core principles. Okay. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'll jump here real quick. So for those, this is the advanced group, I want to remind you guys that your waivers and, your waivers should not be included in this stage of the DSSR. So if you have a waiver, you're not going to be clicking it in the box on the waiver, okay? Not putting in anything new. Now, if you've got one that's already in place, you can click that box. If you don't, not sure if your district has a waiver or not, reach out to me, I'll let you know. And also with your proficiency-based plan, it is not, from here on out, it is not going in your DSSR anymore. It needs to go through the form stack. What's happening is things are getting in DSSR, we didn't know it was in there, and that's our fault. Things are going into the form stack and had a hot mess. We're cleaning that up this year. Everything at this point is for those things with waivers and the proficiency plan are going through the form stack. A waiver is good for 5 years. So if you get a waiver or you've got a waiver, it's good for the life cycle of your DSSR, back to that big umbrella, everything lives inside. Same thing with your proficiency-based plan. It's good for the life of your DSSR, lives inside. So if you are at an update, you should be doing an evaluation. It's also in that form stack. Eric's done an outstanding job separating all that out for us. So if you're an initial, you'll be putting in an application for your proficiency-based plan. If you're in an update, you're going to be doing the evaluation piece. Okay? All that goes into that form stack. And I talked to your alternative school folks about 2 weeks ago and asked them to speak to you guys and make sure they are included in your PBS plan. Think about your adult ed. Anytime you're taking that curriculum and you are getting away from the stand and present that the teacher is doing in the classroom, maybe you're saying, hey, proficiency for us is 75%. This kid gets 75% doing ingenuity on this course. We're going to pass him and move him on for whatever that reason is. That is a proficiency-based plan. Your credit recovery is in your proficiency-based plan. You got a kid that comes in from Virginia and he is taking FBI forensic and you don't offer it. You've got to pull it out of ingenuity in order to finish that class. That is in a proficiency-based plan, so all that's got to be included. Please think about those things. But again, all that should not be put inside that DSSR. Everything's going through that form stack. When we send this out, this is a live link, so you'll be able to click and go to it, but it's also on our state accountability webpage.
What's the deadline? Is that to submit the proficiency-based system evaluation? Is it still the 30th?
It's still 30th.
Okay.
But the waivers go in after we approve the plan. So, and also think about too, I also want to mention, because I saw this somewhere and it freaked me out. Right now I'm just pretending it's not there. Because it doesn't exist anyway. Do not put your waivers in the DSSR. You have to wait till that is approved before that goes through, but think through as well what you may need or what you're needing. So some districts I've talked to have forgotten, they've been doing this practice for years. They've been paying a teacher to teach the extra 4th block in the high school class. They've been doing it for years. And I said, you need a waiver for that, right? Because the reg says the teacher can only teach just 3 blocks. They gotta have a plan. And they're like, just get a waiver. I had one of our school districts, he did it correctly. High school A needed a waiver for 1,500 minutes. High school B needed the teacher to teach that extra block, and high school C needed the combination of A and B. And so he wrote that waiver and sent it in, and I said, now what happens when school A comes back and they need something else that the other two have that school A doesn't have? Just trying to make it easier. So if you've got 3 high schools and they've all got, at some point have got to teach, somebody's got to teach that extra block, and you think those other schools might run into that, go ahead and put them all in there. Then you save yourself a headache and then trying to figure out, do I have a waiver in, do I not have a waiver in? It's easy kind of to do everybody. If that's an issue you have going on, then it is to leave somebody out. And then, as you know, people change hands, y'all change roles, it is what it is, but it gets lost in the translation. So, any questions about that?
Yes, so where it says waivers cannot be submitted until the DSR plan is that the initial approval and the initial waiver? So like year 1?
Yes.
Okay, because we're past that, so we're doing the evaluations then at this stage in our plan. So we're just submitting the evaluation only. We're not worried about the actual waiver.
Talking about proficiency or a waiver, they're 2 different things.
That's see why I'm confused.
That's okay.
The waiver is.
Y'all were confused in this state thing. We've been working on it for 6
So
months.
the waivers, so I know there's a section in the DSR and GEMS that we submit,
Yes.
and we also identify our proficiency based. And we do that as well in the plan.
Yes.
Then we also have to submit to you guys an update on the, which I guess the evaluation is given to there's something else I'm missing.
No. So your waiver, when I say waivers, and I think we're miscommunicating words here, I'm talking about needing, the teacher to pick up 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's
No,
a
I know what you mean right by that, okay.
The proficiency-based plan is that he said we also needs to get in that. Okay. So usually just tuck it right inside your DSSR. It's got to come out and go into this form stuff.
But if we have submitted that,
And it's already, yes, put in an evaluation, because it's good for the life of that assignment. So you've already got one in, and it's good until you rename. Or until you hit your new initial.
for the plan, but then the evaluation is annually.
And
Is that correct? Okay.
Reading plans still do not go in this, that's done separately.
Correct. Okay. And GT plans.
Yeah, that's
Next slide.
Yeah, Go ahead.
Next one.
go ahead.
So cannot speak be gifted and talented, except we had a meeting yesterday and I said, give me the down and dirty highlights of this. So she wanted me to remind you all that you need 2 GT SMART goals. You need to have your policies and practices in there. It's a scope.
That top one's 2, building, well, they're all district only, not building.
Correct. This is just district. Scope and sequence, grades of academic service, grades of artistic service, and screening, identification, and notification. So she says that one, screening and identification notification has been missing out of a lot. So she just wanted me to point out that y'all may need to make sure that you get those in there when you're doing those plans.
These are just services, again, I think I mentioned earlier, we're the innovation support team. If there's anything about school improvement, strategic planning, if you want support, we can do it phone, we can come to your district, that's what we do. So please reach out to us if there's something that you would like for us to do. We can help facilitate, even if it's something that's a little bit out of our realm by chance. So that's not a big deal. Innovation Station, do you have that link? It's in that one slide, or you can just pull it up if you have it. There it is. Better if you want to just real quickly, Rose, share with them about this resource.
So, part of the conversations that we've had today is about comprehensive improvement planning. This is a section of the Innovation Station where we have multiple types of resources for you to help you go through this particular process, as well as selecting evidence-based interventions. Those are resources that are in there to help you select those interventions that will be more for your demographics. We have What Works Clearinghouse, that link is in there. We have Evidence for ESSA. Both of those websites are very, very essential in helping you go through that process for selecting those evidence-based interventions that are for your particular site. You can go in and you can filter it however you need to filter it. You can use subject areas, you can use grade levels, you can use rural areas, but just to make sure that you're getting those interventions that are tailored towards you. Also, within this portal, we have a section for teaching students in poverty. And then lastly, we have our resource library. Our resource library has a ton of information in it in different subjects. Whether or not you are a teacher, a school administrator, or district administrator, and regardless of the topic that you're looking for. And if you can't think of what you're looking for, we have a search at the top. Just type it in and do a search and look at the information that you're getting out. Go to virtual. This day and age, since COVID, you know, our world has turned virtual. We wasn't expecting it to happen, and when it first happened, we didn't know what we were gonna do in this world. There are a lot of virtual resources in here that you can utilize, that teachers can utilize. We don't want you to just look at this. We want you to get into it and dive in and look at the information that's in there. And of course, go back and share. Share it with your district, share it with your principal, share it with your teachers, because it's a lot of information for them as well. If you would notice, this says interactive applications and websites. These are resources that you can pull from everywhere that virtually students and teachers can work on. As a former classroom math teacher, I was all up in this. That's how I knew a lot of the websites, because I use them, and it really makes a difference with the students. A lot of them are free. You don't have to pay a dime. Some of them you may have to pay a subscription for, but if you get a district site, that's totally different. And then we have some that's categorized by mathematics or ELA. So those resources are there. We put the portal together for your use. So we want you to make sure that you use it. It is called the SC Innovation Station. You can do a Google search for it and it'll come up, or you can go to our particular website and pull it from there. If you get in there and you see something that you have a question about, just fill out this assistance piece and it'll get back to us and someone will get back to you with an answer. If there's something that you're looking for and you're interested in and you don't see it in here, by all means, still fill that out and we'll get some information for you. Because we want to update it as often as we need to update it to get you the information that you need so that you can be more successful in your goals.
So do you all once you put it out here, are you all going back periodically to remove any broken links?
Yes.
Making sure it's still
Yes.
current? Okay.
It's a very nice resource. Yeah, very nice resource. And it's all vetted, so it's good stuff.
Oh, I missed this, but you sending us this PowerPoint?
Yes, we'll have access to it.
I will place it online on our website.
So you want to show them real quick the website. So to go to the resources that we have for DSSR, you go to districts and schools, state accountability, district strategic and school renewal plans. There's SC Innovation Station, I don't know if you saw it. And then here's resources and presentations. It'll be up there at some point. And, you know, there's all kinds of information on that website.
And even over onto the right at the bottom, we have exemplars so that you can see performance goals that were written. You can see executive summaries that were written so that you'll have that example there as a guide as you're going through this process. Any other questions?
All right, thank you so much for your time and your attention today.
Absolutely.
Travel safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.